Great. So this is the second meeting of this term for the NetBase seminar. Today we have as a guest Ariadna Fosch. She's a PhD student at both BFI Institute at Zaragoza and at Gentai in Torino. And today she will talk about all things sustainability in palm oil. And in the second part, we will have a discussion about science communication and the troubles with communicating to different audiences and like how we can overcome these troubles. Thank you very much. And Ari, I think you can start.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. So what I wanted to talk about you today, as Basti said, is about palm oil. So a lot of people have heard about palm oil, not so many have seen it like that. And palm oil, like we all associate palm oil in a way with food, most likely, and also with sustainability issues. And there has been a lot of debate. And the most important thing we can say about palm oil is that it's a controversial topic. So there has been for sure some like very big and vocal campaigns against palm oil, arguing that it has a huge impact on the environment, especially because it is produced in areas that are very variable for environmental preservation. So they are produced in Indonesia, Malaysia, countries that are big absorbents of CO2. So there has been in the past a lot of deforestation for palm oil production, which has caused it to be associated with, for example, killing the orangutans. This is part of, for example, a campaign that was made some years ago by Greenpeace, where they were proposing a boycott against palm oil, specifically Nestlé, for using palm oil on their products. The thing is that palm oil is not only being used for food products, yes, like a big amount is used for that, but it's also part of cosmetics, and also more recently on bioenergy. So the issue is a bit bigger and broader than just palm oil. The idea is that, okay, that palm oil in a way has been associated with deforestation and all of these issues, but it also plays a major role on how vegetable oils are used in general. So palm oil is the biggest in terms of production of all vegetable oils, and thus replacing it could also be like very challenging in a way. On the other hand, like if we focus only on palm oil, what we see is that, yes, it has been associated with the negative environmental impacts, but also there has been some other studies even that suggest that it has beneficial effects for the local economy in the countries where it's being produced. So I found this photo in some news article where they were, it's a photo of people in Malaysia that they were protesting against potential regulation from the European Union to only buy sustainably certified palm oil, because they were arguing that this regulation will actually make them lose economic power, because they cannot, like their plantations maybe could not get to the point of being certified as sustainable, because it's a huge and very tedious process that only the big corporations can get to do. And thus they were worried and protesting against this type of regulation. So the first thing that I want to convince you about that is we have to stop trying to demonize certain oils or certain crops. And the thing I want to convince you is that there's not good or bad oils. It's more about the practice that matters. So how you produce it actually makes a big difference in the sustainability outcomes of the crop. So that's, in keeping with the Shakespearean topic, that's why I decided to title this talk Industrial or Smallholder? That's the question, because that's what we decided to study in a huge collaboration with a lot of researchers that are very expert on the socio-ecological part and the actual land assessment part of the analysis. And the idea was trying to see the differences of the impacts of palm oil production when done through an industrial plantation scheme or a smallholder one but not only focusing on environmental impacts, but also on all the other dimensions of the Sustainable Development Goals. To do that, of course, we cannot start from anything. We had some data. So we had data on Indonesia, which is actually like the country with the biggest production of palm oil in the world. And we decided to focus on the island of Sumatra, which is the island where it has the most currently active plantations, and it has had them for a while. So the idea is that we had data of a large number of Indonesian villages there, and then the amount of land that is covered by palm oil and what type of palm oil. We will enter into that a bit later. And also some socioeconomic indicators that tell us well-being in general of that population. So these socioeconomic indicators, the good thing that they had was that they come from a village survey. So they are like very granular and at the same level than the data of the palm oil. So it allows us to do very interesting analysis at a very, very granular scale, so at village level. If we enter a bit more on the palm oil data, a very interesting thing that we had was that our data set characterized the amount of land of the village that was covered by palm oil, specifying also by some types of plantation. So we had, of course, in type of ownership, industrial owned or smallholder owned, and also the status of the plantation. So, for example, if it's a young plantation that is still not productive, mature and already productive plantation, and then some types of unproductive land. So we have unproductive land that the algorithm of classification was not sure if it was fully unproductive or it still had like some residual palms that could give something, but it's not yet fully productive. Or also like there's unproductive damaged plantations that are like fully desertic and they are not producing for sure. So the idea that we wanted to do is saying, okay, what are the socioeconomic characteristics of the villages that have each type of plantation? So for that, we were drawn into a regression approach. Of course, like the classical linear regression doesn't work in this case where we have spatially correlated data. So in the case of one of the main assumptions of the classical linear regression models is that samples are independent and that the independent features must also be independent from each other. The thing that happens in spatial data sets is that there is similarities between regions that are close by, or in this case, municipalities that are close by. To solve that problem, there's been a lot of literature on spatial econometrics, and we decided to exploit that for our analysis. The idea of spatial econometrics is very simple, is that you can do your normal regression, but then you add a matrix that codifies the influence between neighboring places. So basically, this would be an example of an adjacency matrix between the regions in Sumatra, but we generated a matrix like that for all individual municipalities in the region. The idea is that you can plug that in and then model the influence not only of like your own characteristics on the dependent variable that you want to see, but also like the influence of the characteristics of my neighbors on the dependent variable. Interestingly, there's also a way to make global spatial dependency models where you can say that the characteristic I want to predict, so for example, poverty, also depends on the poverty of a place can depend also on the poverty of the neighbors. So you can have regions that are more poor than others in that way. The idea is that this type of models return you, of course, the regression coefficients that we're used to, but in a way of a matrix. And to interpret them in a similar way than in traditional regressions, what it's done is that you estimate the impacts. So the impacts are the direct impacts, are the impacts that a feature can have on yourself. So an X value can have on the same location where it's measured. And then you have indirect impacts, which is basically the average influence of a change in one location into all the other locations. And this is what we see here in terms of the different types of plantations that we studied. So this is the total impacts, which is the sum of the direct impacts on myself and the indirect impacts that I can have on others. We're going to go step by step, but the first thing that we see is that unproductive plantations are associated with an increase in different types of criminality, also malnutrition, more air pollution, and different distance to primary schools. These are all negative impacts for the SDGs in general. And if we compare it to active plantations, we see that in that case, we have some actually positive effects. So we have reduction in poverty, a slight reduction in the number of natural disasters, and an increase in the number of credit facilities and hospitalization, and also like less distance to schools. So we can see first differences apparent between unproductive land and active plantations. And then we also can see some differences between industrial and smallholder plantations. And we decided that we wanted to actually like explore that a bit further, doing a counterfactual scenario. So the idea was, we've seen that unproductive land seems to be the worst. Wait, I think I have to drink a bit of water. So if you can give me like 2 seconds.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, we'll see if that works. Sorry. So what I was saying was that we tried to apply a counterfactual approach where we try to test the impacts of replanting on productive plantations with either industrial or smallholder palm oil. For that, we changed a bit the regression setting. Before we had the type of plantation as the dependent variable, and and the socioeconomic characteristics as the independent ones. And in this case, we actually like replaced it. We put the variables of the associated with the socioeconomic indicators as our dependent variables. And then we try to see the impacts of these, changing these types of plantations and replanting them on those like SDG indicators. So of course, like from this, like you get a value. So you get that essentially replanting this unproductive land results in a reduction of a certain amount, but you don't know actually the impact that this has on well-being. So for example, if we say that an intervention reduces by 1 the number of hospitals, it has a different effect in a village where it only has 1 hospital already from the base level, than in a village that has multiple hospitals. So to assess actually the impact on well-being, we aggregated the results into using some thresholds of well-being. So these thresholds were defined from well-being indicators that were already established for Indonesia. And the idea was that if our intervention causes a village to go from a state where it was not deprived from that category of indicator to a category that now is deprived. So if our intervention causes that now we don't have hospitals, and then it's a highly negative effect. If the intervention causes a village to go from a deprived state to a non-deprived, then it's a positive effect, and it's a highly positive effect. And if it doesn't cause a change in this category, then it's a moderate effect. So we estimated these regressions, and then we categorize the amount of villages in which our tested intervention, caused each type of change. And this is what you see here. So this is the percentage of villages where our counterfactual analysis induced a moderate positive effect, highly positive effect, neutral, or even moderately negative of highly negative. So it's a lot of information. We're gonna go step by step. So in the case of smallholder replanting, so our intervention was replanting unproductive land with smallholder plantation. What we see is that it has overall, in general, like moderately positive and even highly positive effects for quite some SDGs. What we see also is that in the case of industrial plantations, we have still some positive effects, but they are more focalized into reduction of poverty and also increasing the quality of primary education. So based on these outcomes, we would say, okay, so if we want to propose one of these replanting interventions, it would be better to propose it as a smallholder intervention. Yes, but all that glisters is not gold. So what we then went to see is that who is the production profile associated with the most unproductive land. So, and we saw that basically from the unproductive land that we already have and that we are replanting, we see that more than 72% of the unproductive land is associated with the smallholder production systems. So this actually indicates that the interventions of smallholder palm oil would work if we manage to make sure that the plantation being replanted doesn't fail again in a way. So a bit of like conclusions in general. There's not like the idea I wanted to convey is that it's not only oil. So practice actually matters a lot. That we propose an intervention for sustainable palm oil expansion that involved on replanting unproductive plantations, as we saw that those were the ones associated with the most negative effects across the different SDGs, and we saw that it would be preferred to follow a smallholder profile, but this intervention should be accompanied by other complementary strategies to ensure that these replanted areas are really like viable and can like survive on the long term to really get those positive effects for the SDGs. So I also wanted to make a bit of promo at the end. I got the opportunity to participate on the writing of this amazing report about the future of vegetable oil. So this is not only focused on palm oil, but it involves a large group of experts on all oils and trying to convey all together like this message that the practice matters not only in palm oil, but in also many other oils. The report is very nice. It has amazing infographics. So I really recommend it. Sorry, yeah, and that's kind of it that I had.
Thank you very much. Do you want to make a short break to get
I'm
your...
sorry.
No, don't worry. But if you want
I can
to...
get a bottle of water and
Yes,
then
yes.
we are fine.
Yeah, you can, if you want, you can leave us with one of the slides with the coefficients, like to get us more time to look at. I think they're both tables, one of the slides at the end. And yeah, take your time, and then we can do some questions afterwards.
I can leave you with that.
This one, yes. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you.
And take your time, no worries. Also, I don't know if other people want to already discuss, but probably we can also wait until Ari is back.
Yeah, we can wait and then we cut the video.
Yes, yes. Very good. So a 2-minute break for everybody.
I can reheat my cup of coffee.
Yeah, what time is it in America? It's 11? No. 8? It's 8 in the morning? No, 11?
Now it's 11:25.
Yeah, you're on the East Coast. Very good. But by the way, how long are you staying in the US? Both Hanlin and Gab.
I'm staying longer. I'm staying until the December, and the Gap will leave one month before me, like next month.
Wow. Damn.
Mid-November, until mid-November.
Holy moly. Then we have to take care of all of our meetings that they match the time zones. Very cool.
Sorry, guys. Like,
Don't worry. Also take your time.
Ariadna, I had a question. Can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
It was more about I was looking at the reports and I saw
Mhm.
like so many authors. So how was it to work with so many people?
So actually, it was really nice. Like we got the opportunity to first like organize the whole report. Like it was divided like in essentially like tasks, so based on like the expertise of people. But then we got the opportunity to meet all together in Crete for a retreat in which we were like a week working all together on the report, and it was extremely nice. So the people working on the report are real like experts on the topics of oils, and also like experts on the field. Some of them like they were telling, oh, like I'm going for next week I'm going to Indonesia to spend a week on the jungle and trying to track orangutans. Like that level of field expertise that you don't have. And there was also other like people who were more on focus on like certain oils, but studying them from a macro, people studying like value chains. So it was amazing having the opportunity to work and meet all these people.
Interesting.
But yeah, it was definitely like it had some moments. And also like there was a designer that he did an amazing job on transmitting the ideas that we had in terms of like content into actual like nice pictures that make sense in design wise. That was also another experience that I never got to experience.
How did you enter that big collaboration on that report? Did it emerge naturally, or were you approached, or I don't know?
So actually, it's part of like a report so it's part of a group collaboration that we participated in this study in a set of different studies that all were kind of like funded together by the Sustainable Nutrition Board there.
Nice.
And essentially it was like we were part of like this through this study, and then the main organizer of the IUCN organization that, well, let's say the IUCN organization is an organization that they deal about environment preservation and also like forest preservation a bit more in particular, and they developed a oil crops task force that was led by Eric, the one of the main collaborators in this study, and he invited us in for that report.
Very cool. Yeah, it looks huge, and it looks like a lot of
It was really nice, to be honest. Like also putting something allowed me to put some things in perspective, especially also related to other oils. So there was this expert on olive oil making a bit the point that basically Greek, so he's Greek and from Crete specifically, and he said that a lot of the island that now has olive oil at some point had forest. So basically in the past, like much before than we started like also caring about environmental preservation that much, like it happened like a huge deforestation to plant olive oil, but no one has worried about the environmental consequences of that. Like, of course, it's in a different scale, but we care now about the palm oil because we are also seeing it. But that happened before where we were not looking, and it still had some impacts. And it's not that the olive oil is bad because of that.
Do we have questions? Yes. Sorry.
Yeah, I would like to ask you a technical question, if it's possible, about the counterfactual effect analysis. If we can go to the slides.
There, or do you want the...
No, the results.
Yeah.
Yeah, here I would like to see that these results, the values are quite similar. Like I don't see 77% is quite different from 72%. I would like to say, did you see that if these two kinds of a smallholder and industrial expansions are statistically different from each other or no? Or can we see also the difference in different methods and try to see how the effect is really relevant in terms of these kind of things?
So we actually that's a really good question. By the way, so we actually didn't try the difference in difference approach because on the spatial regressions, it's a bit more difficult to implement. I think it's even not possible because for the difference in difference, you basically need to separate both groups. And the idea is that by that you would break the spatial pattern, and we were going for that type of analysis. There's a very nice study in which they do something similar, but comparing the impacts of sustainable certified palm oil and non-certified palm oil. And the idea, I almost put the plot on the introduction, but I didn't in the end. But the idea there is that what they see is that they see differences on the socioeconomic impacts and the environmental impacts, also depending on the type of village that was in which it's planted. So if it's a village that already is used to a commercialization style of life and they didn't rely on environmental harvesting, for example, hunting and gathering, then they thrive more. But if it's a village where basically palm oil, even if it's certified, makes them shift from lifestyle, then it has much more negative consequences. So for sure, the studies have been done in that approach. It would be interesting to analyze. We didn't go there, but it can be really, really good.
Thanks.
Thanks
Okay.
for the
I have a follow-up question, not a follow-up question, but probably a question to this slide. So it looks like the impact on education is both especially junior high school, both on industrial and smallholder, right? So this is just, my guess is this is just if there are working plants, or then there's more young children, teens having to work on that plants, correct?
So, I mean, it's not only we are talking on the village level. So it's just that we have a town there. It's not that inside the plantation.
Yeah.
I have no idea if there's kids. I hope not, to be honest. But it's true that what we see in general is also that there's a tendency of, especially also for industrial plantations, and that we were told from people in the field, to also provide some further level of infrastructure development for the people living there. It's also something that we saw in some of from the early regressions in terms of the unproductive plantations. We see some residuals from that we think, and of course we cannot demonstrate, but it could be residuals that they tried to expand on the so palm oil started to grow there, and they started to make plantations, especially for industrial. Life started to bloom on the community, but then plantations failed. They abandoned the area, and then they moved on. But yeah, it could be related to that. More work, more people, more kids. They also try to improve infrastructure, develop more in terms of school.
Thank you. I have maybe another question. I don't know if I don't want to take away from people, but does the interventions or expansions, do they affect differently the network? Because you had this latent regression, I think, where you have all these coefficients of codependency. I think that do you also look at the intervention impact on the network structure?
No, so the network structure is just the relationship between villages. So essentially, location between I'll go a bit back on the. So it's a contiguity-based approach in this case. So So basically, there's other ways of defining closeness between villages. We explored some of them actually. So for example, for epidemic modeling work, it's sometimes done mobility between villages, but in this case, in Indonesia, there's a lot of forest. There was not a clear pattern also of railroads and railways. There's a lot of boat communication also. So we decided to go with the simple one, which is like contiguity. The only thing that we change with the counterfactual basically is the value. So we have our variable that tells us the amount of land covered by unproductive plantations. So we take that and we transfer it into the column of young industrial plantations, basically. So we change the amount. It's not on the connectivity, unfortunately.
And then a very last question for me, a very quick one. I don't know, maybe in your report writing, do you have any idea of how applicable your modeled interventions are? Like how realistic is it that they can be applied by the people?
So actually, like I cannot guarantee it in a way, but it's something that it's been tried in some specific settings. So the idea is that I was reading a news this morning, like the one where I extracted this picture from, basically, that they were saying that actually there were some organizations trying precisely to do that, to replant palm oil in lands where palm oil had failed. So I found it as a very like reassuring thing, because I was like, okay, my intervention was like not completely crazy. Our approach for choosing that intervention was we are trying to. So given that they're like, you may want to do in a way palm oil expansion, let's do it in the way that it minimizes the damages. And that way for us, it seemed to try again to replant those areas in which it failed, which already are areas that had been cleared for palm oil. So they are places in which it could potentially grow. It's just that there have been other issues, either on management, there has been an event, a catastrophic climatic event that hasn't made it viable, or other issues that have made it fail. So that was our approach for choosing also that counterfactual.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think we are in time to move to the discussion part, if there are no more questions. So do you have a slide about the discussion part, or do you want to introduce it?
I don't have a slide, but the idea that so where we were going for, or I was going for with this, was that during this project specifically, and also like every time that I try to present it, you often encounter that palm oil is a very like politicized issue. And not only that, is that sometimes you have to transmit the message that you want to transmit from your study in a way that it's understandable, not only for scientists, but also for policymakers or other people that are not so used to seeing the results from science. So in that way, the idea that I had was, okay, do you have any ideas, techniques? Did you encounter the same issue in general during your research? And what did you find the most useful? Because for me, for now, it's been trying to make very evident the limitations of the study in a way that it doesn't diminish the message of the study, but in a way that makes sure that people and policymakers or the people interested in applying the study don't expect that the model gives answers that are much more than what its limitations allow, and all of that. But I'm not sure if there's other people around that have more experience on that topic, or had similar experiences and have some tricks or observations that they could bring to the table.
Maybe we can start first with a question to you, which is like you did a report that like talked to a lot of very different people, I assume. Do you have any, like, what were your experiences, you as a team, of working on this report, of interacting with people from different, like, was there some controversy? Did you get into Like, was there some negativity towards you? How did you handle it?
So luckily, like at least inside of the report organizing, we were very aware, and especially like Eric, who was the main driver of that, he has faced a lot of the consequences of research being misinterpreted or simply like conclusions like not being extracted correctly. But we were very sure into how we wanted to transmit and the messages and for what public. So there's a section on the report, especially in the beginning, with key take point messages for different stakeholders. So as a consumer, what do you need to take from this report? As a policymaker, as a media manager, like different messages targeted to different people. But it's true that not only on this case, like I had other collaborators from other studies, especially also during COVID, having issues in terms of the interpretations of their results. Like, what can you say from a model is sometimes not exactly the same of what people are trying to get from the model. So, yeah, like, not sure if you experienced it similar.
No, that makes sense. Especially the key takeaways for different audiences. I think something very, very cool, and maybe also something that I don't know maybe it's hard to communicate them in papers, but to address different people, right? That's actually a very cool idea.
I just remember another thing that was a very interesting exercise is that the whole report was tried to organize around narratives. So what is the current narrative about this topic, in this case, palm oil, and what is the emerging narratives that we want to actually, like, the narratives that are actually emerging from the research and from the science that we actually want to push forward and make more seeable. So the current narrative is probably palm oil is bad. The emerging narrative is that the practice or these things that we were talking, the way it is produced matters, and there's other things that matters, and things are more complex than just good or bad. So all this narrative approach, I didn't know it, but it's actually very interesting also for like proposal writing, or like in a way of making impact of your scientific outcomes a bit more relevant.
So like the narrative method as a framing for your work is very, very nice. Did you, I have not read the report, I just looked a little bit at the but did you also did your research also support current narratives, or was it mostly like debunking sounds hard, but like actually this kind of thing?
So the idea was trying to, like, from the research, and especially that given that a lot of the people that participate in were like known experts, that they have been there for a while on the field and talking about vegetable oil, so they know the emerging narratives from their science. So it's not only like so I have a narrative in my head and find the results, but like what are the results telling us that we can turn into a narrative that then policymakers can, like, in a way buy, like, but it's based from science in a way. That was the idea, that was the intention in a way.
That's very cool.
Also integrating also the smaller voices, so the people who are there, for example, like what are the opinions, what do they think? Because if science says A but their experience says B, like their experience matters in a way.
Okay. Do we have other questions? Sorry.
I would like to add maybe just a point of view. I would like to say that normally, like, the visualizations are mostly the problem when you want to like interact with other people, especially like policymakers. There are certain kind of visualizations that we normally make to support our claims in the complex system society. But normally these visualizations can be really misinterpreted when it comes to like the policymakers and politicians and everybody else, that they are not inside of the like not the exclusion, like, but I would like to say they're not familiar with these kind of practices inside complex systems. this is also what happened during COVID and vaccination modeling and everything. And also maybe it can happen to you, like some kind of visualization you used and nobody really understood what you're saying. And then they tried to understand and then really they understood the opposite part. So do you think like having good visualization techniques and trying to educate ourselves in terms of like how to present our results in a scientific way, but also a nice way is good or bad? Or like, can it be also like applied, this kind of point of view can be applied to your research or not?
Totally. Like I try to like, at least for me, because I really like that visualization in a way. And I really try to put some effort into it, even if sometimes you just like would prefer to do the ugly plot. It's easier and not spend that much time into it. But I think it really matters, especially like also in some other projects that basically you have to interact with people who are like maybe not that used to seeing also complex plots. It's not only like making the plot understandable, but sometimes like we had to, in a way, not downgrade the plot, but it was like, it's uglier. Like it's gonna be worse in terms of communicating the message, but two bar plots maybe work better for this context than a complex stacked bar plot, where people like, we as scientists understand, know how to read them, but then like other people who are not that used to seeing them, it may be challenging. Another thing is that I think that so we can get to a certain point and make things as clear as possible, that then at some point there's also people who just want to interpret what they want to interpret. But like we can make our best to make our message clear and to make it understandable and make it clear, at least just for us. And also, how can I say, I think that we have the responsibility up to that point. Then what people do besides that, it's not on us.
Were there like in your I mean I will focus again on the report, sorry, because it's just such a nice example of doing like this audience-based approach. Within your group, I guess you were quite different, had different expertises and different focuses. How hard was it to like align narrative and quality of analysis? Was there any problem, or were you very much in line?
So that's for that the actual meeting on Crete, like the actual like week that we were together working there, helped a lot, especially because putting like, there was people, specifically the thing we struggled the most, I think, was putting into perspective everyone's point of views. And of course, like the people there were extremely nice and extremely respectful. And even if so I went with Enrique Ferraz de Ruda, another like collaborator working in another correlated project. And we were kind of on the junior side, and the other ones were much more senior. And even with that, like they always like respected our views and our opinions about the problems, because we also came from a more like computer science, data analysis approach, while some of the other members of the task force were like, again, much more applied. So yeah, in a way, like our voice was being heard and their voice was being heard. And the biggest issue was knowing, like making sure that the point of view of everyone was represented, the point of view of the people doing international relationships and on the big scale value chain and all of that, and the people who are actually speaking with the local farmers there on the field and giving voice to those local groups, which sometimes can be challenging also.
Did you do some addressing people outside of the report? So I guess you use social media to highlight the report, but then did you also use some external talks or like social media to like reframe or like put key takeaways again out there? Because then I I think it's harder to figure out who is your audience, because
Yeah.
social media is like, it's very easy that like trolls or like harmful people join the conversation. So how did you handle this?
So for example, they are gonna now, I'm gonna like find exactly the name. So they are now gonna present the version of the report in Spanish. So they wanted to make sure to translate the report in different languages, so it can get to other type of public. And they are gonna present it in a conference called COP, in Colombia, which is actually, for what I've seen, like pretty big on the field of especially like sustainability and environmental preservation in that. And also like we did some presentations like a while back on a conference, a huge conference that happens every 4 years on vegetable oils, that also had like some policymakers. So there was like an invited member of Indonesian government and stuff like that he was very interested. At that point was the very preliminary results of the study, but it was actually very, very nice to get in like their feedback and seeing he was saying like, this makes sense. Like I buy the idea in a way.
Very cool. Gab?
So first of all, interesting, super interesting. Thank you, Ari. So I had a comment and maybe a question. So the first thing about this discussion that we are having is that in my experience, I mean, I found that most things I think they are super clear and obvious. They are not. But I mean, you kind of learn quite fast that the problem is how to do it, you know, and that's a problem. And so when for my what I'm trying to do, I mean, in some cases it has been nice for me to work with people from other people, like from other disciplines, or even like trying to ask someone, a friend maybe that is not in my field, or at least not in my subfield, you know, to read what I wrote, to get some feedback, and most of the time that worked. Now even maybe with ChatGPT, I did it once. Like, okay, imagine you are, I don't know, a random person. How would you read this report? What would you think? And it helped a lot. And for the last paper, but it takes a lot of time to make it in a way that the report is good, or the paper, whatever you call it. I mean, I think it's something that we're not used to, that people don't really say to us, so we should really think about it. But especially when you go to higher impact journals and more interdisciplinary, the reviewers will not understand you, and they will tell you, okay, like this doesn't make sense. What is this correlation meaning? Or what is that? Oh, you didn't write any assumption, or there is no ethical blah blah blah. All of those things, no? So that helps a lot, but I don't think there is I don't know, a way to. And the other question instead was if you had this when you actually communicate in terms of having a talk, if you did this talk, which helps a lot doing the talk because you get various feedbacks, blah blah blah. But if you did it yourself in like not too complex scientists, and how did it go?
So I got to present it on that conference on vegetable oils. That was like very specific and focused on vegetable oils. But it was like a while back. It was not the complete project. But no, like after like that, I didn't have the opportunity. It would be really nice to present it, because it's also like a bit of a difficult topic to present, because the people who are interested in from the outcome point of view are not the same that the people who are interested in from the approach and methodological point of view. Like, so then
Yes.
it's always like the choice for these applied things is like, do I send it to a place where I would get feedback, constructive feedback on the approach, or do I send it like to a place where people want to see like the outcomes and may do something about it and learn something about it. It's a challenge. And about what you were saying, the general comment, I think you're like totally right. Experience makes difference. And also, I think that presenting the work in places like a bit more interdisciplinary, like for example, these kind of talks online for an open public, that it's also like maybe a bit junior researchers or stuff like that, it can be really helpful. I have still to present it a bit more like on a bit of a lower level, because that's another thing I want to see is like how would I be able to transmit these results to, for example, like younger students of a high school, for example, like transmitting. I think that, yeah, that's the thing, and that's the thing that I also try to do with the presentations. Try to get a clear message, maybe repeat it as many times as you can, and then make the whole thing have sense. If you have to sacrifice detail, do it. It's difficult. Like I struggle a lot to summarize in general. But it truly makes a difference. And of course, also making the effort then to simplify the plots. So for example, this plot here, a bit more of like in a meta like presentation, this plot here. Of course, like I had some other labels. I had the name of the actual features here. And after presenting it once, I got feedback saying, hey, like just write a general description, like people don't care actually about the name of the actual feature. And it's right, like they were completely right. So I did it once, improved it. Then I realized maybe I can add the logo of the SDG after another repetition of the presentation. So I think every time it gets better. And at this point that I've done it 3 or 4 times, this talk, I think I got to a point where the story seems coherent in a way. And of course I can like improve things. I saw still some things that I can change, but it's all in terms of like making the message clear. So if you have a clear message, at least for me, it helps a lot to then be sure that you want to, what you want to do.
It happened to me also the same thing, that basically now in my talk I don't speak anymore of the modeled details, or I mean nobody cares if you used a spatial model of that or the other one. I mean, okay, you use the better. You can just name it once, and nobody really. What really important is what is behind that. Why did you use it? What is the mechanism, the assumption? And so now, like, yeah, and it's hard to, or like you have a nice plot, but nobody really will understand if you change the parameter. Okay, like, but I mean, and that's so hard to achieve. And also, when you say about the feedback, it's something interesting you say, because it's not easy to get that type of feedback, because when you do a talk, oh, it was great, when do people tell you what actually you can do to improve it?
That's when you get friends for.
Ah.
That's when you get friends that go to your talks, have seen it like several times, and they are like, okay, I think this time I understood this thing better than last time, or stuff like that. So I think it helps. So this feedback came from like an ex-coworker that had seen the talk like in an internal meeting, and then like he saw it at a conference, and then he was like, I think that could be a bit more useful for this thing. And yeah, but I still think that there should be, in a way, some resources or some methods to like from the maybe bachelor level in some way to just get some talk and training, like it's a part of the job, a very important part of the job. It should be, we should put a bit more effort into that, because it truly makes a difference in a way, like not only how you present your results, as someone was saying, like the visualizations, which make a huge difference, but also the presentation is coherent and makes sense, even to present in conferences in scientific context.
Yeah, I mean, how many times do we hear like a presentation even from senior researcher that doesn't make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it gets hard. Like it's something that it's time consuming for sure. Like
Okay.
making good presentations, putting like some effort on like the visuals or like the storyline or whatever. But it is the difference. I mean, for me, it has been the difference between having, and I know for sure it's that, like having a talk without questions and a talk with questions of people, like where like you see that often there's a high correlation between the presentation was clear and people having constructive questions from and getting that from a conference, or just silence, we move to the next talk.
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe I can add like a follow-up. Like I took a course named interactive visual data analysis, and this course tries to say like from the message that you want people to understand from your visualization, you can choose different kind of visualizations. And maybe for your case, like if you had like interactive visualizations, maybe if the people that you could try a bit like on a website, just change some parameters, like check the views and these kind of things, maybe it would be like better for them to understand these kind of things. Or like from what we want from people, the audience, to understand from your talk, maybe you should choose different kind of visualizations. And that's also like things that it's not very like the case normally in complex systems. Like people bring different kind of visualizations, but they don't support like what the task is. So that's the thing.
So I like this webpage. I see Alessia that is saying yes.
Yes.
So this is it's a very interesting website that essentially they try to use exactly this like approach and help people to do like visualizations. So the idea is that you can actually get visualization types for the information that you have. So for the data that you have. So it's like, okay, I have categorical data, let's say numeric data with one numerical variable, two numerical variables, three or more, and then it tells you like different types of plots that you can use or try to use, or that may be helpful. Sometimes when I'm lost and I don't know what to like how to visualize some concept, I go back here and like skim around a bit, but it does actually like help a lot in terms of that, or seeing, okay, what is my message? So I teach also in a data visualization course. It's more of like tutoring stuff. But one of the main message from that, and it's a bit more targeted towards people from the design background. But they have some really cool insights and a lot of emphasis into try to you get a message, so you tell me the message you want to convey, and then I evaluate the visualization based on whether it's conveying that or not. Like it's a good visualization for that to answer that question, yes or no, because that makes the whole difference in that sense. But
Right.
yeah, this web I can share it also in case through the chat.
I'm very proud that you know about this thing. Because Ari and me met during summer school in our first year, and we basically over data visualization and colors. So I'm very happy that you're still on it.
Yeah.
And
I really like this place.
I need like if you show again the link of the report slide that I missed doing the photo before. So
Yes, I'll show that for sure. Because it's like very nice to skim around.
Yeah.
Very beautiful.
No, the infographics are amazing, and that's not on.
Who did them?
So it's an Indonesian designer called Abiyasa, and I don't remember the surname, but he's really, really good. An expert on also like wildlife drawing. So
It's incredible.
But did you ask him to be involved in, or was part of a lab involved in the, how is?
So Eric, the main organizer, had already worked with him for some other reports, but he was also like part of the whole task force. So he was with us when we were doing the whole discussions, and then trying to also translate our drawings and ideas into like design. So he was there, he heard all the conversations, so he also could be embedded into the story and the messages. And then we made some like very embarrassing from our side, especially mine, my side, like design sessions where we're like, okay, there's, for example, designs on potential scenarios, so future scenarios. So it's like we made some hypothetical, very extreme scenarios, but to convey the message of like, what if everyone became vegetarian? What if we got to this like level of CO2 emissions? Like then like potential outcomes based from studies, but also with the idea of conveying a bit the awareness of the situation. But so this, we designed some images, of course, with like stick people, and then we transformed it into like nice, vivid.
Very nice. Does anybody have a last word? Or Ari, do you have a last word, or is there a last question maybe?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to thank you guys for giving me the opportunity.
Oh, thank you for being here. That was great. Also, one takeaway was that friends are great. This is what I took away from the discussion. That's super.
Let's see now the video that they tagged you on.
Oh yeah, no, I don't know if I got the tactic, but I will comment our YouTube video to your talk to them. Great. No, thank you very much, and thank you to everybody who listened. And we see everybody back in 2 weeks for our next talk. Yeah, thank you very much. Have a great evening, and see you soon.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.